Man has no.
And welcome back to the Real Side Radio with Dave Sussman in the chair here, Joe. And I got to tell you, I know that was a little bit of a rant the last couple of, but it's no reason to have a rant right now. There's nothing that should make me so upset and so angry. But maybe we can kind of pull it all apart and put it back together again with Jon Gabriel, who is the editor-in-chief at Ricochet.com. He is a contributor at Arizona Central and the undisputed king of stuff. How you doing, my good friend?
Doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing really well. You know, I wanted to have you on because I read this article that you wrote, which is up at Ricochet.com, and you're talking about this fire hose of excrement, which is coming right now on everybody. And this is one of my biggest fears, John. First of all, talk about what you mean by this, and then we can go into the reasoning for it. What is this fire hose that you're referring to?
Well, it's just anybody who follows the news at all, and I was going to say I pity the people who don't follow it much, but I think I envy them a little bit. But if you need to follow the news and you're on social media, every day there's another quote-unquote blockbuster that's, boy, this is the end of Trump this time. And then about 2 hours later, it comes out that, the story was wrong, there were errors, or at least there's mitigating circumstances. But by then, 2 more stories have dropped saying, this is the end. So it's just this fire hose of nonsense being sprayed in every direction by the media and their allies in Congress, the Democrats. And it's just spraying everywhere. And yes, it's hitting all Trump's people, but it's splashing back and hitting the accusers as well, because you have all these different news agencies who are just obviously, they loathe Trump. It's very obvious. They're throwing away any kind of journalistic integrity. And it's really blowing back hard on Biden and also now Adam Schiff.
One of the things I'm worried about is that there are a lot of good people in this country, and they may not be politically active or just as interested as you or I are. Unfortunately, and you said that, and I laughed because I'm the same way. I envy people that don't follow this on a certain level, because it is somewhat cancerous. I mean, the ups and the downs and the anger, and especially if you watch social media. I know you're prevalent on and prolific on Twitter, but I think this is by design, where this fire hose is being sprayed at the American public, that so many people are just tuning out and turning off. And at the end of the day, they come home, they're exhausted, they've been working 2 jobs, they just want to turn on Dancing with the Stars, and they might get 15 seconds of news on their local news. And it's really what the Democrat news networks have been saying all day anyway, and they don't look into it deep enough to really understand the complexities of this. Does that change the outlooks for elections, do you think?
Yeah, I think it kind of depends. If you kind of tend to give Trump the benefit of the doubt of the Democrats, and the Democrats, you have no reason to give them the benefit of the doubt. They just wasted 3 years insisting that Trump was colluding with Russia. Now, without so much as an apology, they've immediately shifted to, no, Trump's been colluding with Russia's mortal enemy, Ukraine. Now let's impeach him for this. And I think a lot of people have tuned it out, and just this constant level of outrage. You know, the Democrats have been trying to impeach Trump since before he was even inaugurated. Chuck Schumer famously said December, before he even took office, that they were looking into impeachment already. This is just a semi-convenient excuse, but I think it's going to go the way of the Mueller report. It's going to blow up in their faces, and more we're seeing that Adam Schiff was in on this. He found out about the whistleblower complaint before it was even filed and coordinated with the whistleblower, just as many of us expected. But now it's really out in the open. So, I think a lot of Americans have tuned out, and the good news for Trump is the press and the Democrats, it's been the boy who cried wolf. They've been screaming, he's destroying our republic, he's finished any day now, the walls are closing in, all these various cliches they used. Yeah. And they've been saying it nonstop since he was running in the GOP primary. Boy, we've got him this time, and they never seem to get him.
Well, I think during the primary, you or I were believing that the walls were closing in and he was done. I think I wrote articles up on Ricochet after the McCain comment, winners don't get caught or whatever that was, that it was finished. And we laughed about it. But here he is. is, and I know you are a Trump skeptic. I don't think you're fool never Trump. I don't think you were.
No.
Right. But at the same time, I think you call good Trump bad Trump, intellectually honest. And I know a lot of people at Ricochet do as well. But I also have seen somewhat of a change for those folks that are seeing that he is actually he is actually living up to the promises, unlike so many presidential candidates and politicians generally ever do. And from a conservative standpoint, holy cow, did you ever think that he was going to get the judicial nominees through and the tax reform through and the regulatory issues through and fighting on the border the way that he was? Do you think, no matter whether you like the man or not, that will lend itself well to a strong re-election chance next year?
Yeah, I think it will, and my evidence of this is the Kavanaugh hearing. That was something that really united Republicans, even, a lot of never-Trumpers. They hate Trump. All they do is whine about him nonstop. But even they were appalled at how the naked partisanship on display from the Democrats on that. And you had people who weren't very politically active saying, okay, this is absolutely insane. And I think this Ukraine business fits right into it, because even if you think the call was questionable, and by questionable I mean, I wonder if he should have done that. Not that he did anything guilty, but even if you are skeptical of it and go, boy, why is he talking to the Ukraine president about Biden? Does it rise to the level of impeachment? Of course not. If anything, the norms being violated are all coming from the Democrat side. They're just dying to impeach him. It doesn't matter what excuse they have, and they think this is their second bite of the apple after the Mueller report collapsed. And I don't think the American people are buying it. And I think a lot of conservatives more and more are thinking we're in a fight for survival here. It's the Democrats just... Let's be honest, if you watch in the Democratic debates, they despise, half the country, absolutely despise us. And that's going to raise people's hackles and say, hey, you don't get to tell us who we're allowed to vote for, what we're allowed to believe. Enough already.
Yeah, I think that they are turning off a lot more people than they're bringing into the party. And I want to talk with you after the break. We've got a few seconds here before our bottom of the hour break, but I want to talk to you about what we're seeing right now from the standpoint of this information that's coming out regarding Schiff. He knew, as you just referred to, the whistleblower before he said he did, be basically all the lies that are now starting to come out here, and what is happening with Barr overseas, and this maybe a drop of information that's about to be dumped on the Democrats that they would never have expected. And I want to get your impressions on how that may actually impact first the impeachment hearings, if there's going to be impeachment hearings, and then what's going to happen with everything as we get into the actual full-blown campaign. So we've got Jon Gabriel. He's the editor-in-chief at Ricochet.com. Everybody needs to check out Ricochet.com. I get to write over there. Very fortunate, and it's a fantastic right-of-center site. And I greatly appreciate you taking the time. We'll be back after the break. Dave Sussman here at Real Side Radio. Don't go away, folks. Bottom of the hour. Welcome back to Real Side Radio. I'm Dave Sussman, and if you're not chatting with us on the Facebook room for Real Side, please get involved. There is a lot of action happening right now. People are chatting and venting, and it's a good place to be, and you can find that at realside.com. Of course, you can listen to us across the fruited plain. 52 stations now, right? GCN Network and Salem Radio Network as well, and you can always call in. We had a call last hour, 855-732-5563. But first, I'm delighted to be speaking with Jon Gabriel. Jon Gabriel is the editor-in-chief at one of my favorite websites. It is called Ricochet.com. It is a very civil place where you can talk politics, which is unlike most other places online today. Jon, I gotta first say this. You and I were just chatting during the break off air, and we both agree that this entire impeachment push is purely political. And one of the reasons that I know this is purely political is because I read a report today, I think you probably saw it as well, that Schiff says that he wants to push this thing through before Thanksgiving, 6 weeks. And so if you remember the last two impeachments, and I barely remember the last one in 98, I wasn't old enough to know what was going on in 73, but 73 took 8 months, and 98 Clinton took 5 months. They want to push this thing through in 6 weeks. Does America understand that this is purely just about branding the impeachment word on the president they hate?
Yeah, it really seems like most people will view it this way. In the past, you've had, it was before our time, but Watergate, what they did is say, okay, how can we convince over time, here we'll lay out the evidence, we'll convince some independents, we'll convince a few errant Republicans who might oppose Nixon at some point. And it was this methodical release of information. And Democrats now are just throwing everything to the wall at the exact same time. It's like their wall is covered in spaghetti, hoping one strand is able to stick. They aren't even trying to win people over. And based on their actions in the past and how shifty they've been with, they were talking about impeaching Kavanaugh a month ago, for crying out loud, and they forgot that quite quickly. But I think they are just trying to rush this through. I think also Pelosi wants to rush it through because she knows an election's coming up, and red state, all these red state Democrats who eked out wins in their district, even though Trump won those districts in the past, they're nervous. They're extremely nervous, and they want this to be forgotten as soon as possible.
I spoke at a rally for congressional candidates on Saturday. I was very fortunate. I met with probably actually over a dozen congressional candidates, mostly throughout California. And Trump's social media guy, what's his name, Pascal? He suggested that they've got 12 seats in the bag. They need 18 to turn the House. They're actually going to start putting money into California races because of the vote harvesting that they did. That's illegal in North Carolina, by the way. That gave us a special election last month. But in California, it's completely legal, and we can go door to door and just grab votes. So you think that this is going to turn it basically on Democrats on their back, and do you think it could lose the House for them?
I think it definitely could. They're playing a very high-stakes game now, and for some reason they're constantly convinced that they're going to win the next election. Everybody's voting Democrat, and they will stay in power forever. And that's why they're changing the House rules to try to rush through this impeachment. They think they're never going to be out of control again. It's going to backfire on them, I believe, at this point. And that's the thing. Anything can happen. The news cycles change every day. But if you look at the fundraising figures for the GOP and for Trump, they are astronomical. It was something like, I can't remember the exact stats, but it was something like 4 times the amount that Obama made in the same part of the cycle Trump has just taken in. So people are very motivated and very angry, especially when you have major Democratic presidential candidates just proposing taxes for everything, attacking Wall Street, and taking away everybody's guns and free speech, religious liberty, you name it. I think they're making a lot of people nervous, including people who might have wanted to vote for them if they had just remained semi-sane, or at least pretended to be sane.
Today, Trump campaign, Republican National Committee to report $125 million raised in the third quarter. By comparison, as you were just saying, Barack Obama and the DNC raised around $70 million in the same quarter before his re-election campaign. Trump nearly doubled that. Hillary Clinton, even with all her huge donors in 2016, didn't have numbers like this. So you're absolutely correct. Okay, one of my favorite podcasts features you and Stephen Miller. It is called The Conservatarians. Everybody can find that on iTunes and Ricochet and everywhere else you can download your podcasts. It's a fantastic podcast. It's just the two of you riffing. And Stephen Miller is with Fox News. He's all over the place as well. One of the things that you guys were talking about was that you're seeing even folks that are diehard never Trumpers, libertarians, other folks that are out there that are starting to come around. Talk a little bit about that, what you're seeing.
Yeah, well, we published an article from Richard Epstein. If you know anything about libertarian or conservative jurisprudence, he is this rock star law professor who, recommends candidates, that many of whom Trump has gotten through the nomination process. He was stridently anti-Trump, even as inauguration started. And he said he is outraged at the impeachment. He says it's ludicrous. There's no evidence for this. I've never seen anything like this. And he is the most passionate legal defender I've seen of Trump, and he's a guy who's beyond a Trump skeptic. An article was published today. John Podhoretz, many of your listeners might be familiar with him. He's the editor-in-chief of Commentary Magazine. Also, never Trump, I would have to put him in that position. He's saying his headline today is "Impeachment may have jumped the shark." He's saying this is ludicrous. So if they're losing people who are highly, highly skeptical of Trump, then they're losing all sorts of people, especially independents.
It's amazing to me that there's still such a thing as a never Trumper. I look at it like, that's still a thing, but because Trump, listen, you don't have to like the man. You don't have to agree with everything he says. You don't have to like his tweets. But as a conservative, right? As a libertarian, as a free market guy, I don't care about the individual. I want the policies. That's the way I look at things. And yet there's still, you got your Bill Kristols, you got others that are out there, Nichols and other folks that are out there that are still so diametrically opposed to this man. And you and I have spoken about this before. What about those diehard never Trumpers? Even with everything that we've seen with the judicial nominees and the appointments and the economy and everything else, what do you think it would take to turn them towards Trump in 2020?
I think many of them, honestly, and I usually don't question the motives, but I think it's a meal ticket for a lot of people. High-profile people are being invited on MSNBC and CNN all the time, or having books lauded by places like the New York Times just because they oppose Trump. I think that does have something to do with it. And they've just dug in their heels so much because a lot of people on both sides, right and left, really like the swamp the way it is. They don't want things to change. The sweetheart deal that Biden's son got with Ukraine, well, this is how business has been done in the Beltway for many, many decades. And that affects Republicans as well as Democrats, who kind of want to keep things calm and keep things rolling because it's been very, very good for them and their friends. And he threatens that. He threatens people on both sides of that. And yeah, I will definitely criticize Trump when I think he makes a bad policy choice or something like that. But just this pretending that 2016 never happened, that Hillary would have been better, Hillary of all people, it's just ludicrous. They need to accept 2016 happened, right and left people. 2016 happened, and this is the new reality, and you need to adjust to it. Just constantly sniping from the sideline, I really don't see how that helps anybody.
Yeah. In our last few seconds here, folks could find you at Ricochet.com. You're also on Twitter at XJon, EXJON. Fantastic feed. I use your information regularly to learn about what's going on, and I greatly appreciate everything that you're doing, John. In our last 30 seconds here, what happens November the 3rd or 4th, whatever the election date is, if Trump wins re-election? What do you expect to happen in the media and everywhere else?
Absolute pandemonium and meltdown. The problem is, like I said, they've been crying wolf so long. I don't know how you can ramp it up from what it has been. They need to accept defeat.
Yeah, they certainly do. Well, listen, I should be in Arizona soon. Hey, go ASU, Daredevil. Is it Red Devils? No, I'm sorry. I should know this. My son's going to school there. Sun Devils. Go Sun Devils. And I should be down there, and hopefully we can connect again and have some coffee. I greatly appreciate you taking the time. Best of luck. Continue writing. You are a fantastic source of information. Everybody follow Jon Gabriel at Ricochet.com and at XJon. And we'll have you on again soon. Greatly appreciate you taking the time, John.
Dave. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks. And
Thank
folks, don't go away, because when we come back, we got a lot more information coming up here for you at Real Side Radio. I'm just going to say this to you right now. If your head hasn't exploded yet, it's about to. We're going to have a lot more news coming up here after the break. Don't go away.